Another day another day and another afternoon of this day in black baseball history. Today we're looking at November the 7th, 2025. And if you've never joined me before, I always have to start off this way to let you know that what I do is I give you historic events that happen that pertain to African American baseball players that happen on this day. Now, they might not be playing just baseball. You know, it's kind of late in the year for baseball unless they're playing Winter League baseball, which they could be in Los Angeles and Cuba, Puerto Rico. But also, I'm giving you information about guys who are playing football, guys who are boxing. How about even got a couple of hockey players? And in addition to that, I give a commentary at the end of these historic events. And the historic event commentary comes from my more than 45 years as an African American baseball historian. Guys, I go way back. Started as a kid in the second grade collecting baseball cards, and I started absorbing information from that point forward. And here we are. To start in 1980, I started really looking into the Negro baseball leagues and started going out and interviewing people in 1980. And boy, I came up with some gems. I'm so proud that I was able to meet many of these people that they're legendary figures now. But when I first went out to talk to them, nobody was talking to them. Some cases, I was the first guy who had been out there to actually talk to them other than people in their community who knew them. Probably in years since they quit playing ball, and some of them had quit playing in the 1930s and the 40s and in the 20s. I even interviewed a guy, I remember Fred Langford. I interviewed Fred Langford, and Fred Langford had played with the Pullman Colts in 1909. He also played with the Kansas City, Kansas Giants. And so when it comes to the Kansas City, Kansas Giants, boy, I know more about that team probably than anybody. I ain't gonna say probably. There's no doubt I know more about that team than anyone because I'm the one who put a lot of that information out there, and it came from Fred Langford. And so Fred Langford was just a powerful resource of information. And I used to sit there and we'd talk baseball with Mr. Langford. Interesting thing about Mr. Langford, he was 94 when I met him. And this is probably about 1982, something like that. He's 94. So I'm interviewing him, and this guy was so sharp on modern day baseball, just amazing. He even took a team down to the Wichita tournament in the early 30s. That's when he took down the Thatcher's Colts. And I don't know if you remember Eugene Collins. His father, Donald A. Collins, was on that team that went down with Mr. Langford. He played with Mr. Langford. And so anyway, this is just great history. Mr. Langford passed away, and he's buried in Westlawn Cemetery, same place my grandfather and my both sides of my family are buried in Westline Cemetery in Kansas City, Kansas. So and there's a few pretty good ball players buried there, and I'll have to share that with you. One of these days, I'm going to go out to the cemetery, maybe walk around and show you some of these historic monuments and an all African American cemetery. Now, I don't know how many of you ever have gone to a cemetery that's an African American cemetery. We've gone to cemeteries, but sometimes we consider that a sacred place. So that's a little bit of that. So let's go ahead and get busy and start talking about things that happened on November the 7th through the time. So let's go. We're going to start off with November the 7th, 1920. Jess Hubbard struck out 13 batters and tossed a 9-hitter as he ripped a double, a triple to beat Alexander's Giants. And they were another African-American team by a 7-3 score in Los Angeles in Southern California Winter League action. Jess Hubbard. They used to call him Mountain Jess Hubbard. Now, we've been talking about some of these guys who were very tall. Jess Hubbard was one of those people. He came out of Texas, and they called him Mountain Jess Hubbard. So this is a big man, but the mountain was because he was so tall. And he was just a great pitcher, played with many teams in the East, but he would go out and pitch in the West. But he could hit too good. He could hit really well. And if you look at some of your greatest hitting pitchers in the entire baseball history come out of the Negro Leagues. I don't know if you know that, but hey, I'm teaching here so you will know it when I get off of these broadcasts because there's just a lot of guys could really hit. And then Alexander's Giants, they were one of the original teams out there. Later on, the California, what they call the Los Angeles White Sox, and that was Bullet Rogan and that bunch. They came out in 1920, and they came for several years. I do have a panoramic of the White Sox. I've never released it, but I do have one. It's a great shot of the crowd, and it's a really good image. So there are images that I've never released, and so I hope to do that. One thing about once you release an image, guys, people will take that image and they'll forget all about who was the first one to release that image. So a lot of times, if I have a really unique image, I'll release it in a book. That way I can date it, date stamp it, and that way you know where it came from. I can always cite that source. So I just want to let you know that. So that's Alexander's Giants. All right, then. So let's jump over to November 7th, 1926. Crush Holloway's home run in the second game of a doubleheader helped the Philadelphia Royal Giants to a 4-1 win over the Los Angeles-based White Kings Soap before a capacity crowd. And we have in here also Willie Wells and Bizz Mackey contributed a pair of hits and each to win the game. Okay, so we're looking at a pretty strong lineup. Crush Holloway. First time I really learned some things about Crush Holloway was reading John Holloway, his book. And Holloway actually interviewed Crush Holloway. And so it's an interesting read. So if you want to go back and find one of John Holloway's books and read a little bit more about Crush Holloway. And then most of the things that have been written about Crush Holloway come from the work that John Holloway did on this guy. So anyway, one thing I would tell you, because I talked to several people who knew him real well. I remember talking to Frank Duncan Jr., and he had a story that he told me about Crush Holloway. Now, Crush Holloway had green eyes. Now, there are some guys in the Negro Leagues that had different color eyes. For instance, most people don't know that Composey had blue eyes. Crush Holloway had green eyes. There's probably others. Some may come to me as I talk. These are things that I learned from talking to people who actually knew these players. So, yeah, Crush Holloway. And do I need to tell you any more about Willie Wells? I'm from Austin, Texas. Just a great player, a great shortstop. And he played a very shallow shortstop. He wasn't as strong from the hole like, say, maybe Adobe Moore was. He didn't have that kind of arm. But he was certainly an outstanding hitter. And, of course, Raleigh Bizz Mackey could play more than one position. He's in the Hall of Fame, probably just being a catcher. But he could also play the infield very well. And he was, of course, out of Texas as well. So some good ball players came out of Texas through the years. So just like to talk about that one. Crush Holloway. I'm not sure where Holloway was from, but I'm gonna have to go and look that up. Somebody let me know if you're looking up while I'm talking. Okay. All right. So let's go to November 7th, 1927. Under a threatening sky, the Philadelphia Giants defeated Joe Peroni's All-Stars by an 8-2 score with Willie Ludoff on the mound. Now, Willie Ludoff was a guy who went, I can't remember if he was in the American or National League, but he definitely was in one or the other. So he was what they call a big league pitcher. Okay, and the Giants wrapped out 15 hits off the All-Stars pitcher. I tell you what, these guys were in the major leagues, what they call the major leagues, and sometimes I'm tempted not to call it the major leagues. I'm tempted to just call it American National League because there were so many great players that weren't in there because they were just the wrong complexion. That it's hard to call the teams that people quote calls the major league. Sometimes it's very difficult. I have a problem with that. But of course, I can always say American National League. So you hear me say that quite a bit. Some people may think that's biased, but guys, I've earned the reputation. And I've done my research to know that what I'm talking about is true. All right. So we have Willie Ludoff giving up 15 hits. And Jess Hubbard, remember we talked about him earlier. He's out there, 1927 again. He slammed a home run, while Rap Dixon, that's Herbert Rap Dixon, and Frank Warfield added stolen bases. And so, boy, that's a couple of great names. Rap Dixon, out of Stilton, Pennsylvania. There's a couple of guys who are really high on Rap Dixon, especially trying to make him a Hall of Famer. He was a darn good outfielder and a good power hitter, and the first African American hit a home run in Yankee Stadium. How about that? I think it was 1931, if I'm correct. So yeah, Rap Dixon, and he was on the coast quite a bit. So you could, the evolution of the coast was they had Alexander's Giants, right, and then they had the Los Angeles White Sox, and then they came with the Royal Giants, and so the Royal Giants were there, and then even when Tom Wilson came out in the late 20s, going into the 30s, he would call his team the Royal Giants, right? Sometime it would be the Elite Giants. But that's Winter League Baseball history in California. California has its own history. So just love talking about that. So you notice we're getting these Winter League games, but I just want to talk about it. But the Winter League just wasn't in Los Angeles. How about this one? Okay, and I'm going to answer some of your guys' questions in a moment, all right? So let me get through these facts, and then I'll go back. How about this one? On his way, okay, this is November the 7th, 1936. On his way to posting a 21-3 Cuban Winter League record for Santa Clara, Ray Brown tossed a no-hit 7-0 victory over Havana. Now, I didn't get a chance to interview Ray Brown, but I interviewed two of his wives. How about that? One of his wives was Composie's daughter. I interviewed her, and at the time that I located his wife he was married to when he passed away, he was married to a white lady, and he was living in Dayton, Ohio. If I remember right, he worked at a factory. I think it was a bread factory when he passed away. You can look that up. Somebody's probably got that online in his bio. But yeah, I actually talked to two of his wives. How about that? One being a wife, the other one being a widow. And so that's Ray Brown. Great pitcher, Homestead Grays. Hey, how about this? Another guy with green eyes. How about that? That interesting? I don't know. What is this tonight? If I keep talking, I'm going to think about other guys too. But Ray Brown was just a great player. And he did have a son by Composie's daughter. That's correct. Died in Dayton. So that is Ray Brown. All right, let's go to another one. Let's see. This one's going to take place. How about Puerto Rico? So this one is November 7th, 1941. Josh Gibson's homered 3 consecutive times versus, Senadores. And I got the name of the field. I'm not even sure how to pronounce it, but it was in Puerto Rico. So I'll just go ahead and spell it. Estadio, Dale, D-E-L. I say E-S-A-M, or E-S-C-A-M-B-R-I-O-N. That was the name of the park in Puerto Rican Winter League action. I see on Gibson's 4th plate appearance, he was intentionally walked. How about that? I would have walked him too. Guy hit 3 home runs in a row. And he was known to not just hit a ball that just barely got out the park. Man, this guy was hitting tape measure shots. So I'm not surprised they walked him. With the game on the line, more than likely, they had to walk him. And so that's Josh Gibson. I'm going to have to go back and dig up the score on that game because I don't have it here. I like to give you all the information I can give you. But I found that. And I always love when I find a guy with multiple home run games because it just shows the ability of these guys. And these are things that just haven't been celebrated enough. So there's Josh Gibson. You know about Josh Gibson, I'm sure. If you don't, man, just go ahead and Google his name and you'll learn more than you'll ever need to know. Sean Gibson, his great-grandson, is out there doing a wonderful job in promoting his family member. And so, guys, get on board. If you don't have a Josh Gibson baseball card or something, go out and get one. And if you get a chance, go follow Sean Gibson, right? And then let him know that Phil Dixon said to follow and learn more about Josh Gibson. I will tell you, they also have the Josh Gibson Foundation, so that's something that if you want to give some money to, they're working with youth baseball players and around Pittsburgh, guys. It's a good cause. So just want to let you know that's Sean Gibson. I had the pleasure of being with Sean. The last time was in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. I think that was he was in late August or September. Yeah, so good guy out there doing a wonderful job for his family. All right, so let's go to one more. All right, so we had Los Angeles Winter League Baseball. We had Cuban Winter League Baseball. We had Puerto Rican Winter League Baseball. So we're going to finish up with some basketball. How about that? So November 7th, 1948, the Harlem Globetrotters down Acres Clothiers in Mount Morris, Illinois by a 51-40 score. Is Reese Goose Tatum dropped in 7 shots for 14 points. And you've probably heard of Goose Tatum. Now, if you haven't, you should. And I'll tell you the reason why. Goose Tatum is a member of the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield, Massachusetts. And he's been a member of that since 2011. And another Harlem Globetrotter that's in that Hall of Fame there is Marcus Haynes. Now, I had a chance to interview Marcus Haynes. He was from Sand Springs, Oklahoma. Believe it or not, back in the segregated era, I lived in Kansas City, Kansas, where the school that I would have went to, which was Sumner, we ended up moving, so I didn't go there, but that was our all African American school. So they would come from Oklahoma to come to Kansas City, Kansas to play Sumner High School, and they would pass all these schools in the middle who were white schools because they wouldn't play them. So back then, either going to play in Oklahoma, but if you're going to come into Kansas, the only couple of places you're going to play is Wichita or Topeka, or you can come all the way to Kansas City, Kansas. Then you might pick up Sumner High School, and then you could cross the river and pick up Lincoln High School, and maybe R.T. Cole, so you could get 3 games if you're in this area. But can you imagine going that far to play a high school game because of segregation? That's all it was. Sumner High School, and there was one game. Sumner always gave them a good game, and Marcus Haynes told me that they came in one time and played a game, and it was so lopsided they beat Sumner. And he told me that the reason they beat Sumner with that lopsided scores, he said, is because some of Sumner's players had broke some kind of team rule or whatever, and the coach wouldn't let them play. So he played all subs, and then they came from Sand Springs, Oklahoma, and just murdered Sumner High School. Sumner High School had some great athletes. I'm telling you, Leonard Gray, Hughie. He went to the same elementary school I did. He graduated from Sumner and played in the NBA. They actually had NBA ball players come out of Sumner. I know at least one guy when they had the Royals Academy, where they were just looking for good athletes they could send to the academy and turn them into baseball players. And so they were moderate baseball players, but once they got to the academy, they got to be much better. One of them was Frank White, of course, UL Washington. But there was a guy named Rufus Carruthers, who was at Sumner High School, who was one of the persons that went to the academy. So I used to see Rufus Carruthers play at the local park when I was a kid, and would go down there, and they were teenagers, and I could see these guys who were going to be potentially famous people playing. So some of those guys didn't make the big leagues, but here I am all these years later. And that's not 45. This when I was a kid. So we're talking about maybe 60 years later. I'm still talking about them. And these are guys that I saw. So, and probably people in Kansas City, Kansas, they haven't subscribed. They won't pick this broadcast up. But just know that there were a lot of great players. So this just gives you an idea. I was looking for somebody who passed away today, somebody who was born on this day, and I just couldn't find anyone that I wanted to talk about. So I do want to conclude right now. And once again, guys, I'm new to this forum. I'm trying to get subscribers. I hope to get monetized someday. But I'm going to keep bringing you good information. And this is information, believe it or not, you're not going to get this combination of information anywhere else on social media. Not on YouTube, not on Twitter, not on Facebook. I can go on and on and on. You're just not going to get it. So this is the place to be. So go ahead and subscribe, and eventually I'm going to come down your street, maybe your community, because you think about it today. You talk about the Harlem Globetrotters playing in Mountain Morris, Illinois. Where's Mount Morris, Illinois? If you live in Illinois, you probably know, but if you're in New York, you probably never heard of it before. So, all right, so let me go ahead and say hello to a few people, and then I'm going to get on out of here. So, I appreciate if you stayed the whole time, which is pretty difficult to do because people have a lot of things going on in their life. But if you just stayed for a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, I appreciate you guys. So come on back. So I got somebody named, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Tuca, Tocamadi is the last name. And they said hello to you. And then I got a Kaylee Wicker, Wicker. And then this person named Tuca says, wow. I'm not sure what I said, but hopefully I wowed you with something I said. I don't know. Then we got Jake's fan. And then he said Bellwood. I'm not sure what that means. Okay. And then he says hello. And then this TACA still guy is still there. He said, what else? Not sure. And then Jake's fan says, I love this story now. Not sure which one it is. Then somebody mentions basketball. And here we go. Somebody says hello again. Someone says, my great grandfather played for a baseball team in Kansas. Okay, I'd love to know what city. I'm a member of the Humanities Kansas, and I've gone all over the state. I might have that box score in my collection. Don't know. You have to let me know what state next time. And then if you're still on here, go ahead and pop it in there now. And somebody said he was originally from Biloxi, Mississippi, and brought his family to Wichita, Kansas. Oh, man. You know, hey, believe it or not, I've been to Biloxi. Mississippi. If most of you who follow me know that if you go and look at some of my feeds on this line, you know that I play trumpet. And as a young musician, we would leave Kansas City in the wintertime, and we would go down south, and we would play Biloxi, Pascagoula, Mobile, all through that area there. We played it all the way to Pensacola and back into New Orleans. So, yeah, I know that area very well. Biloxi is a nice town. But, man, I don't know, leaving Biloxi and coming to Wichita, that's a whole. You left that Gulf Coast to come up to Wichita, which is dry as a bone and flat as a pancake. So probably a great, different experience for sure. Okay, and then somebody says my grandfather had blue eyes. Okay, all right, I understand that. And then said, so who's your GOAT of baseball? I don't have a greatest of all time in baseball, but I have certain players that I like that I think deserve special attention. I talked about one yesterday. His name was George Wilson, a famous left-handed pitcher. Played around the turn of the century. Also John Donaldson, who played for many years. I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. One of my favorites is Bill Monroe also. Played for the Philadelphia Giants, played for the Brooklyn Royal Giants, Chicago American Giants. He was an outstanding player. And then of the players that I met, of course, I'm a big Chet Brewer fan. Chet Brewer did wonderful things to help me to preserve this history. John Buck O'Neill also did wonderful things to help me. Maurice Doolittle Young, who I talk about. Maurice Young was his real name. He played for the 1927 Kansas City Monarchs. And also Fred Langford. I talked about Fred Langford when I opened up. These were people who really went beyond the normal to help me. And there were many more. And unfortunately, when I start calling these names, I'm sure to leave someone out. But if you keep listening to the broadcast, these names will come back to me. So just so many people helped me to get to where I am today, to be able to talk to you like I am doing right now. So, guys, and I always tell people I don't have a job, so you can't hire me, you can't fire me. I have a passion. And my passion has kept me going through all these years. And you know, sometimes you almost feel like you're under attack because, you know, people just seem, you know, you're firing on all cylinders. And believe it or not, you would think that would make some people happy. Well, it pisses some people off. So it is a little thing called envy, called jealousy. Yeah, people actually do experience those kind of things. But when God blesses you and gives you a special talent, guys, really there's no one who can stop you from performing at a very high level. So I feel special in that way because I never asked to be anything about baseball. I was just a kid who loved the game. And now look at me now, all these years later. I even coached 30 something years. So it's just been, baseball has been a wonderful experience for me. And so I hope that you and everyone else continue to enjoy baseball. And I hope you enjoy this little place we have here, this space. So that about does it for me this evening. I do want to thank everybody for subscribing. If you like what I'm doing, go ahead and subscribe. I'm going to get to 1,000 subscribers. I don't know how I'm going to get there. And I will tell you, I was out walking yesterday, walking and talking and thinking. I called it walking, talking, and deliberating. And that particular video that I put up, oh boy, it got a really good response. So, and I'm just walking and talking about some things. And look, it made me want to take another walk today, but I had too much on the plate today to get out here. So thank you guys. So I hope that answers some of your questions, and I will see you soon. And we'll be talking about baseball a little deeper. And one of these days, guys, I am going to do a broadcast where I'm going to sit here and let's let you fire questions, and then I just sit here and answer questions for you, and with no paper, just straight out memory, and let's see where it takes us. All right. So I'm thinking, you know, I might try to maybe start doing those on Saturdays. Let me think about that, and that might be fun to do. All right. So guys, thank you, and that concludes it for me this evening. So you just heard historic baseball facts from November 7th. Of course, this is the November 7th, 2025 edition of This Day in Black Baseball History. See ya next time.